Zanil sat quietly at the kitchen table when her mother placed a thick envelope in front of her. $40,000, her mother said sharply, her eyes cold. All yours. Just marry him. Zanil's heart sank. She knew who her mother meant, a man more than twice her age, rich, controlling, and known for his cruel ways. I won't do it, Zanil whispered. Her voice shook, but her decision was firm. Silence filled the room like a storm about to break. Her mother's face twisted with rage. Before Zanil could even move, hot coffee flew across the table, burning her skin. She screamed in pain, the cup shattering on the floor. But her mother didn't say a word. No apology. No regret. Just turned and walked away like nothing happened. The pain wasn't just from the burns, it was from the betrayal. That night, her mother threw her out with nothing but the clothes she wore. No money. No phone. No goodbye. Only scars, on her body and in her heart. Zanil stood outside in the cold, her face stinging, tears mixing with the heat of the burns. She didn't know where to go or what to do. But deep inside, something had already begun to change. She had said no. She had chosen herself. And even though she had nothing, she still had her voice. The world had tried to buy her silence. Instead, it had woken her fire. One quiet evening, after everyone in the house had eaten and gone to their rooms, Namboka stayed in the kitchen a little longer to finish her work. As always, she kept a folded piece of paper in her pocket. It was a story she had written the night before, one that had come to her in a dream. She had written it on the back of an old grocery list with a pen that barely worked. Her heart was in every word, but she had no place to keep it safe. Later, when she swept the floor and emptied the trash bin, the paper slipped from her pocket without her noticing. It landed quietly among food wrappers and torn plastic bags. The next morning, Aiken, the employer's teenage daughter, was looking through the trash for a craft project. Her hand stopped when she saw the crumpled paper. Curious, she opened it and began to read. At first, she didn't think much of it. But as her eyes moved from one line to the next, she became completely still. The story was about a girl who felt invisible, who worked all day but was never seen, yet still dreamed of being a writer. Aiken read it twice. Her heart felt heavy, and her throat was tight. She had never read anything so honest, so raw. She didn't laugh. She didn't mock. Instead, she took a photo of the story and typed out the words into a storytelling website she followed. She didn't even tell her parents. She used the name Silent Soul and pressed publish. By the time she woke up the next day, something unbelievable had happened. The story had spread like fire. Thousands of people had read it. Hundreds had left comments. Some said they cried. Others said they felt like someone had finally put their own pain into words. There were shares on social media, messages from people in different countries, and people writing things like, "This story feels like a hug I didn't know I needed." Aiken scrolled through the comments again and again, her hands shaking. And then she saw one comment that made her eyes fill with tears. It said, "I'd buy you 100 coffees if I could. You saved my life." That one comment was shared more than any other. People made art out of it. They made quotes and videos with soft music in the background, reading lines from the story aloud. Aiken sat in her room, phone in her hand, not knowing what to do. She wanted to tell Namboka right away, but she was scared her parents would be angry, or that Namboka might get in trouble. Still, deep down, she felt proud. She had helped something special reach the world. She had helped give a voice to someone who never had one. She didn't know how or when to tell Namboka the truth. But what she did know was this: the world had finally heard the quiet maid's voice. And they didn't just listen. They felt every word. The train station was cold, loud, and full of people who never looked twice at a girl sitting alone in the corner. Zenil had been sleeping there for days, hidden behind a bench with nothing but a small bag and a sketchbook. Her burn still hurt, her stomach was always empty, and her heart felt like it had been crushed. But even with nothing, she still had her pencil. She had found it near a trash can on her first night, and somehow, it felt like a little piece of hope. Every day, she sat quietly and drew. She didn't have proper paper, so she used whatever she could find, old receipts, used envelopes, crumpled flyers left behind by busy travelers. She would sit cross-legged on the cold floor, sketching strangers as they passed. Their faces, their eyes, their emotions, she captured them all with soft strokes, almost like magic flowing from her fingers. At first, no one noticed. People walked by without seeing her. But her drawings started catching eyes. Some passengers would stop, just for a second, to watch. A few even smiled. One day, a little boy came and stared at a sketch of his mother Zenil had just finished. His mother looked shocked when she saw it, it was perfect. She tried to give Zenil money, but Zenil gently shook her head. She didn't draw for money. She drew because it helped her breathe. It made her feel human again. Every sketch was her way of talking without speaking. Her silence had become her language. Day by day, more people started noticing the quiet girl in the corner who drew like a dream. Some took photos. Others brought her blank sheets of paper. One woman brought her a sandwich and left without saying a word. Zenil would bow her head in thanks, but she still didn't speak. Her voice had been buried too deep, under pain and fear. But her hands told stories, and people listened. Soon, a small crowd would gather every evening, just to see her work. It was like a secret show, hidden in the shadows of the train station. Zenil never looked up much, never smiled, but inside, something was growing, a tiny spark, something warm. Even though she still slept on a cold floor and had no idea what tomorrow would bring, her drawings gave her a sense of purpose. Her world was still broken, but for the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was creating. And even if nobody knew her name, they started to know her art. Her sketchbook, once empty, was now full of faces, happy, sad, young, old. Each one carried a piece of her. She was invisible in the crowd, but her art made her seen. She had no roof over her head, but she had something more powerful than money or comfort, she had a gift. And even in the darkest corner of a forgotten train station, that gift began to shine. Zenil didn't know it yet, but her drawings were about to change everything. One rainy afternoon, Zenil sat in her usual spot at the train station, drawing on a piece of cardboard she found near a food stall. Her fingers were cold, her clothes damp, but she didn't stop. She was sketching an old man sleeping on a bench, his face full of wrinkles, sorrow, and untold stories. She had almost finished when someone stopped in front of her. She didn't look up. People often paused for a moment and then walked away. But this man didn't move. He crouched down slowly and picked up one of her older sketches that had slipped from her bag. "Did you draw this?" he asked, his voice calm and curious. Zenil nodded, still not speaking. The man looked at more of her drawings, carefully, like they were made of glass. "These are powerful," he said softly. "You have a gift." Zenil looked up for the first time. The man had kind eyes and wore a long black coat. He introduced himself as Mr. Daniels, a well-known art dealer. She had no idea who he was, but something about him felt safe. He didn't ask where she lived, who she was, or what had happened to her. He just asked one thing: "Would you like to show your work in a real gallery?" Zenil stared at him, unsure if he was joking. No one had ever offered her anything without a price. Slowly, she nodded. Her heart beat faster. Was this real? Mr. Daniels handed her his business card and told her to come to his gallery the next day. She didn't have fancy clothes or even a way to clean up, but she went. She walked in with her bag full of sketches and her head down. The gallery was bright and beautiful, full of colorful art and important people. Zenil felt out of place, but Mr. Daniels greeted her warmly. He took her to a quiet room and let her spread out her work. His eyes lit up with every piece. "This is raw. Real. Honest," he said. "People need to see this." Within a week, her art was being prepared for a small exhibition. She couldn't believe it. Her sketches, the ones made with broken pencils on trash paper, were now going into frames. She still wore the same old sweater and kept to herself, but something inside her had started to heal. She was still afraid to talk about her past, the pain, the scars, the night she was thrown out, but here, no one asked. They saw her art first. They saw her. As the gallery prepared for her debut, Zenil worked quietly, watching her dreams unfold in front of her eyes. She still couldn't believe that someone had seen her, truly seen her, among all the noise and crowds. She had drawn in the shadows, but now, her art was stepping into the light. Mr. Daniels didn't know her story, but he believed in her gift. And that chance, that single moment of being seen, had opened a door she never thought she could even knock on. For the first time, Zenil wasn't just surviving, she was rising. The night of the exhibition arrived, and Zenil stood in front of the gallery, her hands shaking. She wore a long black dress that someone from the gallery had picked for her, and over her face, she wore a silver mask. It covered the burn mark on her cheek completely. She had agreed to the exhibition, but the thought of people seeing her scar still made her heart race. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Not to face the whispers, the stares, the pity. So the mask gave her courage. It let her be in the room without feeling exposed. Everyone inside the gallery admired her art. They stood in front of the drawings and whispered words like, brilliant, emotional, and raw. But no one knew the girl behind the work. And that was how Zenil wanted it, for now. People kept asking Mr. Daniels who the mysterious artist was. Some thought it was a clever marketing trick. Others believed she was famous but hiding her identity. Zenil stayed in the corner, quiet, watching people's reactions. One woman cried in front of the sketch of the sleeping man. Another took a photo of a child's face Zenil had drawn from memory. Everyone felt something. That meant more to Zenil than anything else. Still, she stayed silent, the mask holding her emotions in place. But as the night went on, something shifted. A young girl came up to her, also wearing a small mask, and asked softly, "Are you the artist?" Zenil nodded. The girl looked up at her and said, "Your drawings made me feel brave." That one sentence hit Zenil harder than anything else. Brave. She had never thought of herself that way. But in that moment, she realized she wasn't hiding because she was weak. She had survived. She had created beauty from pain. And now, maybe, it was time to stop hiding. As the night reached its peak, Mr. Daniels stepped up to the front and spoke to the crowd. "Tonight, we are honored to show the work of a truly gifted artist. But her story is more than just art. Its strength, its survival, its truth." Then he turned toward Zenil and gently asked, "Will you let them see you now?" The room fell silent. Everyone turned to her. Her hands trembled. Her breath caught. But slowly, she reached up and removed the silver mask. Gasps filled the gallery. Some people covered their mouths. Others froze. The scar on her cheek was deep, but her eyes were stronger than any wound. She didn't look down. She stood tall. For the first time, they weren't just seeing her drawings, they were seeing her. All of her. The pain, the courage, the fire that kept her alive. Cameras clicked. Phones went up. But Zenil wasn't afraid. She looked at the little girl again, who smiled wide, now without her mask too. Zenil had walked through fire, through rejection, through silence. And now, she was standing in front of a room full of people who once didn't even know she existed. Her face was no longer something to hide. It was part of her story. And that night, the city didn't just meet an artist. They met a fighter. News of Zenil's powerful art and emotional gallery debut spread fast. Her story went viral, the girl behind the mask, they called her. Photos of her drawings, her face, and her strength were everywhere. People all over the city were talking about her, admiring her bravery, her talent, and the way she had turned pain into something beautiful. Strangers were sharing her work online, and art lovers came from different places just to see her pieces. Zenil never asked for fame. All she wanted was to be seen, not just for her scar, but for her soul. And now, the world was finally listening. But not everyone was happy for her. Her mother, who hadn't seen or spoken to her since the day she threw her out, suddenly appeared on social media. She posted an old photo of Zenil and wrote, "So proud of my daughter. I always believed in her." People who didn't know the truth began praising her. They called her a strong mother who raised an amazing artist. Zenil saw the post, and her hands froze. The same woman who burned her, who kicked her out into the cold, who never looked for her, was now claiming credit for her success. At first, Zenil said nothing. She didn't want drama or attention. But inside, she felt the old pain return, hot, sharp, unfair. Soon, reporters started asking questions. One journalist, deeply moved by Zenil's story, decided to dig deeper. She found people from the neighborhood, an old teacher, even a worker at the train station who had once given Zenil a blanket. Slowly, the truth started to come out. People learned how Zenil had been thrown out, how she lived on the streets, how she drew with trash paper and broken pencils. They heard about the coffee burn and the silence that followed. And then the public turned. Comments flooded her mother's post. "You didn't believe in her, you abandoned her. How dare you take credit for her pain? You tried to break her and now you want her spotlight." Her mother tried to delete comments, then the whole post, but it was too late. Screenshots were everywhere. People were angry. Not just for Zenil, but because they had seen too many stories like this, where pain was ignored until success came. Zenil, for the first time, spoke out in a small interview. Her voice was soft but strong. She said, "I made it because I chose myself, not because someone helped me. I had to be my own family." That one sentence hit hard. It was shared thousands of times. Her mother was silent after that. No more posts, no more interviews. Her name faded into the background while Zenil's star kept rising. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. People connected with her honesty, her journey, and the strength it took to forgive, but not forget. Zenil didn't celebrate her mother's fall. She didn't need to. Her truth stood tall on its own. And in a world full of fake smiles and empty praise, the truth always shines the brightest. Zenil never thought her scar would be anything more than a reminder of pain. For so long, she tried to hide it, thinking it made her ugly, unwanted, different. But everything changed after the gallery night. The photo of her removing her mask and revealing her face had traveled across the world. People everywhere, young girls, survivors, artists, even strangers, shared it, saying how much her courage meant to them. Suddenly, Zenil was more than just an artist. She became a voice, a symbol. Her scar wasn't something to be pitied anymore. It was a crown. A mark of everything she had survived. A reminder that beauty lives in truth, not perfection. She started getting messages from people who had also been hurt or rejected, people who had been told to hide. Zenil began speaking at schools, shelters, art centers. Not with big words, but with her story. Her presence alone inspired others to be brave in their own skin. Soon, a movement grew. Scars turned crown, they called it. People began posting pictures of their scars with pride. Artists painted faces that showed pain and strength together. Fashion brands reached out to Zenil to model, not to cover her scar, but to highlight it. Zenil didn't seek fame. She stayed grounded, still drawing, still quiet. But her image now stood for something far bigger than herself. Her pain had been real. Her journey, long. But in the end, what once made her feel small had become the reason others stood tall. Zenil proved you don't need to be perfect to shine. You just need to be real. Her scar wasn't her shame, it was her power. Her crown. And she wore it beautifully.